This is For the Governed, a podcast series brought to you by Athalonz. Here are your hosts, Tim Markison and Ron Cates.
Welcome to a very interesting episode of the Athalonz podcast. I'm Ron Cates. With me, the CEO and founder of Athalonz, Tim Markison. Today we're getting into biology science, that's one of my favorite topics.
Excellent.
Tim, we're going to talk about hemoglobin and hematocrit.
Right.
Make that exciting.
So with respect to hemoglobin and hematocrit, it really starts with my objective of living till I'm 100 years old.
Well, why only 100?
Well, it's kind of a milestone.
Or at least 100.
Yeah, at least 100.
Really, okay,
okay,
I got you
at least 100. Okay, thank you. But it's not just a matter of living till then, or being alive till then. I really want to live and enjoy my life. From a professional standpoint, as a patent attorney and the things we do here at Athalonz, I feel like, it took me until my late 50s to really get into a position of experience and knowledge where I have something to really contribute. And there's so much more from a professional standpoint that I still want to do. I need to be healthy for a long time to be able to do that. And then, my granddaughter is going to be turning 3 here in a month, and I want to be an active part of her life for a long, long time. So between professional objectives and personal objectives, I want to live a long time. And I've had made the decision or the goal a while ago to live a long time. So I started seeing a doctor that specialized in hormone balancing and anti-aging. It was probably about 10 years ago. So right when I was turning 50. And I had low testosterone. So started getting supplements for that, and it helped. My energy was a little bit better, and I was getting more physically active. And then my daughter, she got into running, doing half marathons. It's like, I was never a runner. I was a baseball player, so running was something I always had to do but never really enjoyed. But she was enjoying it, so I started training with her, and it was really nice. It gave us a chance to, hang out 3 times a week, and do those things. Then we started doing half marathons together. So our training routine was, we'd do 1 or 2 half marathons a year. So we'd train for 3 or 4 months before the event and then go run. And, we're far from competitive. It was, we'd be like 10-minute milers. So it'd take us a little over 2 hours to do a half marathon. But we enjoyed it. And what was really fun is, going to different cities, but just having, 10,000 to 20,000 or more people, all energetic, doing something active. The energy was really, really exciting and just fun to be part of. So it was really kind of enjoyable events for us. So, but after a half marathon, we'd taper off on our training, and because it was a while before the next one, and then we'd get out of shape for running, and we'd have to start all over. So about 4 years ago, we made the decision to let's do at least 4 half marathons a year. That way we can, we have to stay conditioned. So that was the plan.
And someday your granddaughter could join in on this, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So
wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, that really excites me to have 3 generations doing races together. How fun would that be? But at this time, right about the time we made the decision is when my daughter became pregnant with my granddaughter. So she tapered back on her running, but I stuck with that commitment of doing multiple half marathons a year. So I think it was 2018. Excuse me. I ran 4 or 5 half marathons in the first 6 months of 2018. I was in the best cardio shape of my life at 57 years old, and I was feeling good. Doing the training, and still doing the doctor's care. And under the doctor's care, I'd get my blood checked every quarter, and see where the hormones were and see what supplements I needed and things like that. so in addition to the testosterone, I was also getting, I have a sluggish thyroid, so I was getting some thyroid medication and a few other things through supplements.
So you were training well, you had a
Yeah.
physician's care or
Yeah.
a medical professional's care.
Yep.
That's a pretty ideal scenario.
Yeah, I thought so, and I don't drink. I watch what I eat. I was in really, really good shape. Figuring I'm doing all the right things to live well until I reach triple digits in age. And that summer of 2018, went to a business trip in Colorado. So, we're at 7,000 feet altitude, and just did a mild workout that morning. And it didn't feel right. Just a little bit of a headache, but didn't really think anything of it. Ate breakfast, went to my meeting, and about 20 minutes into the meeting, my vision started to blur, my hands started to go numb, and it's like, oh shit, I'm having a migraine. And I don't get those very often, but when I get them, they're really painful, and I just usually need to go lay down. But I'm in the middle of a meeting, so. But this one was a little different because they started asking me questions, and it's like, man, I should know the answer to this, but it's just not there. So Jeremiah was with me, so he was filling in the gaps, and so when we were heading back to the airport, he had to drive because I couldn't see. And again, I was just assuming it was a migraine. I'll get back home, get a good night's rest, everything will be fine.
But that's got to be just the worst situation where there's something wrong. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Not being able to answer questions that you know the answers to.
Yeah, that was really the weird part. And just like, talking, I'd hear the words and I'd say, man, I should know what that means, but I just can't put it together. And I honestly, I can't even give you an example because I can't remember those particular things. But like I said, usually I get home, and by the time we got home, I was feeling a little bit better, still was having the migraine symptoms. And usually I go to bed and I wake up the next morning, I'm fine. With this time, though, I wasn't. I felt worse. And then my wife, who had just completed naturopathic medical school, was like, we really need to get you checked out because this isn't right. So
it's pretty handy to have a doctor in the house.
It really is.
Yeah.
I wish she'd have done this, 20 some years ago, but it worked out where she didn't do it until she was in her 50s, which is a whole nother story that, we'll do one day.
We'll cover that someday.
Yeah. But, and the doctor that I was seeing, she was seeing as well and had a lot of respect for this doctor. So when I went to the hospital, ended up spending the night because they wanted to do a battery of tests, especially since I was 57 years old. They didn't really find anything, but the medical conclusion was that I was having TIAs, and I'm not even sure exactly what that stands for, but basically...
I know. It's a transient ischemic attack.
Yes, thank you. And
it's in front of me. So
yeah, but
I have notes.
But I put everything in layman's terms for myself.
That's a good idea.
So with a TIA, it's a restriction of blood flow to the brain that affects the functioning of the brain. And but they had... So that was the medical conclusion of what I was having, which explains the memory loss, the migraine symptoms. But then it was like, well, why am I having these? Like, we don't know. My primary doctor, who was giving me the testosterone supplements and the thyroid supplements and things like that, didn't know.
Tim, if I have this right, a TIA in and of itself is not permanent. It doesn't cause damage, but it's an indicator that something much worse could happen.
Yes. Yeah, it's an indicator that if it's not treated, the causes for why there's restricted blood flow to the brain, if those aren't treated, then it's an indicator of potential strokes. And so that was a big concern. So my wife started to investigate, and again, thank goodness she had just finished medical school, and realized that it was the testosterone. So when many males take testosterone because they have low testosterone, it starts to build the blood. So the markers for testing that are hemoglobin, hematocrit, and then red blood cell count. So when my wife ran my blood, when she realized that it's probably because of that, my markers for hemoglobin and hematocrit were extremely high, so well above what was considered to be healthy. And
now, this same sort of thing happens to endurance athletes who are cheating and using something like EPO. The same issues happened 20 years ago. There were guys dying in their sleep because their blood was too thick.
Yeah. So
you were doping, getting ready
yeah.
for running,
but not intentionally. So I was, and my blood pressure, I've always had really good blood pressure. That was jumping up. So basically I had too much blood and it was too thick. And, fortunately the cure for that is really simple. I donate blood. So I have to do that every 2 to 3 months now. But it took almost 9 months to get my levels back down to safe levels. So, here it is 3 years later. My blood is in the healthy ranges again with the hemoglobin and hematocrit and red blood cell count. My blood pressure is back down to healthy ranges of like 120 over 75, and I'm back training and almost into that cardio shape that I was when I was doing all those half marathons.
Right. I'd also point out that you're getting ready to ride your bicycle across the United States to raise money and awareness to prevent child abuse.
Yeah.
So you've gotten incredibly fit. Now, I have a question, though. So because testosterone supplementation can be important, how do you do that but then not come up with this issue or create this issue of too thick of blood?
Yeah, I still do testosterone supplements because without it, I have the testosterone level of somebody in their 80s, and I don't. So the amount of supplement I get puts me back into the healthy range. It doesn't put me, way over the top.
So before it was too much?
Well, no, it wasn't too much. I was always stayed within the markers. It's just that if the hemoglobin, hematocrit, and red blood cells aren't checked, it just builds and builds and builds. So the testosterone can be always safe levels, but if those other markers aren't checked, those are the red flags that somebody like me was building too much blood.
So anyone doing testosterone supplementation needs to monitor their blood as well.
Right. So that was for my wife just starting her practice. So I'll give her a plug here. Her practice is Mesa Naturopathic. So her website is Mesa DR. So MESADR.
Yes.
That was a lot harder than it should have been. But it was a valuable lesson to learn about how important it is to check those markers when a patient is getting testosterone.
And it's nice to have a spouse who is a medical professional.
It is. So.